Five-star Ohio State wide receiver commit Jeremiah Smith was in the swamp watching Florida State beat Florida on Saturday night. Now, both UF and FSU are working very hard to flip Jeremiah Smith from his commitment to the Buckeyes. So in this video, we're going to break it all down with Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons. What's going on with this recruitment? And is he a flip possibility to one of the in-state Florida schools? We're going to find out. But before we do, smash that subscribe button for me to the On3 Recruits channel. We are bringing the juice from now all the way to signing day, so make sure you are subscribed with us. All right, let's bring on Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons. And Chad, let's talk Jeremiah Smith. He's been committed to Ohio State since December 14 of 2022. Now, let's talk about what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. Do you think that Jeremiah Smith is really open to these teams, or is he just playing out his recruitment and taking advantage of the perks?
You know, Josh, I think really he's taking the professional approach and just listening, just kind of taking everything in, every pitch from every coaching staff, soaking in. I think the game day environment's kind of picturing himself, whether it be at Florida State, wherever he's at that weekend, to see maybe how he could fit in potentially at that program. Yes, I mean, when you're a five-star kid, a five-star plus receiver like Jeremiah Smith, you definitely can benefit from the perks of being at that status. But, you know, for me, I think he's truly just soaking it in and making sure he's making the right decision for him and his family.
Okay, so, well, then what does Ohio State need to do down the stretch to keep him committed? And conversely, what can UF, FSU, and Miami do down the stretch to try to flip him?
Ohio State just has to keep being Ohio State. Obviously, a tough loss to Michigan for the third year in a row over the weekend. But Ohio State, he chose them because of one thing: wide receiver production. He wants to be that guy. He wants to be wide receiver one in the NFL draft in the next 3 or 4 years. And I think that's why he trusts Brian Hartline the most and Ohio State to develop him and get him to that level. Yes, he wants to go play great competition, win championships, compete for, conference and national titles for sure. But his ultimate goal, like most in this recruiting class, is to be NFL one day, playing on Sundays. And I think he chose Ohio State for that reason in their player development. Now, with the other side, Florida State, Miami, 3 in-state schools, they just want to keep putting a little bit of doubt in his mind about why they could be the better fit than Ohio State. Hey, come be this guy. The easier path to playing time could be here in Gainesville, in Tallahassee, in Coral Gables. You can stay home. You can represent your home state school. Hey, don't forget about the warm weather down here in Florida. You used to playing in Hollywood, Florida, Chaminade, Madonna, not going to the Big Ten, playing in cold weather, training in the off season where it's 20 degrees. And they're trying to put all these little things in his mind, to him, his father, his camp, to give a little bit of doubt about why they could be the better school. So FSU, Florida, Miami will keep grinding all the way up until December 20th to kind of put a little bit of doubt and keep their teams in the mix.
Yeah, and Jeremiah Smith, he has remained committed to Ohio State. That has not changed over the course of the last year. But Chad, as we sit here about 3 weeks away from the early signing day, which in-state Florida school sits in the best position to flip Jeremiah Smith?
I still lean Florida State. We know he was at Florida this past weekend. He sees the opportunity at Florida for sure. He talks to Billy Gonzalez, of course, quarterback Florida commit, DJ Lagway. They have a relationship. But I still like Florida State as far as in the best position to get him away from Ohio State. Mike Norvell has taken this one on personally. He's making Jeremiah Smith feel like he can be that next guy and replace, Keon Coleman. At Florida State, the opening is there next year for a guy to step in. They have the OV still coming up in December. They had him on campus a couple of times. And I still like where Florida State is the most as far as talking in-state schools and the biggest or best chance to flip him away from Ohio State.
All right. You kind of mentioned it there. Official visit to Florida State. What remains left for Jeremiah Smith down the stretch? Because we know there's only a couple weekends remaining. Does he have any more visits locked in?
He does not. Obviously coming off this trip to the Swamp, he mentioned there's a possibility he goes back to Florida for an official visit. Of course, Miami's right in his backyard, an easy
Right.
trip to Coral Gables if you want to take a midweek trip, a weekend trip before the dead period kicks in a few weeks. But right now, the only thing locked in 100% is that OV to Florida State the weekend of December 8th. Could things change? Could things be added? Yes, but right now the only trip he has locked in is to Florida State.
Do you think the Buckeyes need to get him back on campus in Columbus to kind of lock this recruitment down?
I don't think so. I mean, he's been there multiple times, probably somewhere over half a dozen times throughout his recruitment. He's been to games. He's been on an official visit. He's been there for junior day type things, spring practices. So he knows what Ohio State is about. And going back to what I said earlier, he chose Ohio State for that reason. That's player development, Brian Hartline, and his resume and track record. So I think he's seen everything he has to see at Ohio State, just them staying consistent in communication. And again, just telling him day after day why they're the right school for him. That's all they have to do, and really all they can do to try to hold on to Jeremiah.
All right, well, there you have it. It's going to be a busy couple weeks for Jeremiah Smith, the 5-star wide receiver, the #1 wide receiver in America, committed to Ohio State, but coming out of the Swamp on Saturday night, there's some rumors swirling that maybe one of these in-state schools could still flip him. Chad Simmons, thanks for setting the table on this Jeremiah Smith recruitment. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.